Hey guys, what's up? MadSeason here, back with another video for you. We still have a few major patches coming to Legion, but something that people still like to speculate about is what the next expansion is going to be. So in this video, I thought it would be fun to take a good look at what the game has covered so far, and sort of speculate what the next expansion could be after Legion. Note that, as the title says, this is all just speculation. Nothing official has been announced yet, and I wouldn't expect one for several months since we still have lots to do in Legion. So I guess the best way to do this is to look at where we've been so far. The first expansion is of course the Burning Crusade, which was our first tangle with demons. The next was the Wrath of the Lich King, which focused on the story of Arthas and his reign as the Lich King. This is the Blue Snowy expansion. If you want to compare it to those classic platformer games, they all had a theme. They had a fire level, a water level, a forest level, etc. I like to think that Wrath of the Lich King was the snow level, and the next expansion, Cataclysm, is the fire level. And the Mists of Pandaria is the, panda level? Okay, well maybe that's not a very good comparison. But after that, we of course had the Warlords of Draenor, which focused on all of the big orc clans, the Shadow Moon, Shattered Hand, Blackrock, etc. And now we have Legion, which is sort of a callback to the Burning Crusade in a lot of ways. The similarity between all of these, I think, is that their story is centered around a big bad dude or just a general evil force. For the Burning Crusade, it was Illidan and Kael'thas. The Wrath of the Lich King, of course, had Arthas, Cataclysm had Deathwing, and so on. So, to help us predict what the next expansion is going to be about, let's take a look at all of the major evil people that really haven't been addressed in a big way yet. So far, we can cross out Illidan, Gul'dan, Arthas, Archimonde, Kil'jaeden, and also Sargeras, since we're apparently going to be dealing with him in Legion in some way when we visit Argus. And we also have Deathwing and Garrosh. So, the major ones that haven't been dealt with yet that I think would be worthy of a major focus of an expansion are as follows. In no particular order, we have Queen Azshara, the Old God N'Zoth, and Jaina Proudmoore. So, let me go over these one by one to share why I think they may be worth looking at if you're trying to pin down the next expansion. I'll start with what I think to be the most interesting because she has ties all over the place in this expansion and others, and that's Queen Azshara. Just to give you a very short too long didn't read of the story behind this character, she was basically the leader of the elves before the Sundering. She started communicating with the leader of the Burning Legion, Sargeras, and she of course got tricked by him and summoned a demon army, which kicked off Azeroth's first tangle with the Burning Legion, the War of the Ancients. After the Sundering, she and all of her followers drowned in the sea, but instead of dying, the old god sought to use them and transformed them into new beings called Naga. Queen Azshara still lives to this day in the underwater city of Nazjatar and rules the Naga, hoping one day to take revenge against the Night Elves. Up until Legion, there's been echoes of her strewn about. Her handmaiden, Lady Vash, was the final boss in the old Serpent Shrine Cavern raid in the Burning Crusade, and she also had a brief appearance in the Cataclysm expansion, as well as the old Well of Eternity dungeon. And in Legion, she plays a pretty big role in one of the major zones, Asuna. You of course see her Naga everywhere in the zone, but doing the main questline when you're playing as Prince Ferandis, she actually makes an appearance. Well, an image of her at least. Her goal was to retrieve one of the Pillars of Creation, the Tidestone of Golganath. She also used to have a counselor who's made an appearance in this expansion. You may have heard of him, his name is Xavius, and he's the final boss of the Emerald Nightmare raid. He's the one that introduced the Queen to Sargeras, which started that whole mess way back when. So basically what I'm getting at here is that she has ties to everything, especially with the Legion expansion. I find her similar to Gul'dan from the Warlords of Draenor. Remember when he started that expansion, the big bad was Grommash Hellscream and the Iron Horde. To shut down their invasion, he had to free Gul'dan, and he led us to the events of the Legion expansion now. He was sort of a sleeper villain that we didn't pay too much attention to until it was too late when he took control of everything in the Hellfire Citadel. I think Azshara may turn out to be the same type of villain. Right now, our focus is the Legion and Sargeras. Queen Azshara is still there, but lurking in the background, waiting to see how things play out and looking to be the catalyst of the next war, which I think will be with the Old Gods. As I mentioned, she has big ties with the Old Gods, and particularly N'Zoth, which is the octopus one. He's pretty similar to Cthulhu in a lot of ways. If you don't know who the Old Gods are, they're basically corrupted manifestations of the Void, created to corrupt slumbering titans. The main ones are Cthulhu, Yogg-Saron, Isarge, and N'Zoth. We've dealt with them a bit so far. We had Cthulhu in Vanilla WoW, Yogg-Saron in the Wrath of the Lich King, Isarge's Heart was used by Garrosh Hellscream to gain power, and N'Zoth we haven't dealt with yet. I think it would kind of make sense if Queen Azshara would go hand in hand with any of the Old Gods. It would be N'Zoth since they're both aquatic. We have actually heard about this guy in Legion as well. When you're fighting Il'gynoth in the Emerald Nightmare, you get some ominous whispers, even mentioning N'Zoth's name directly. Here's the first one. To find him, drown yourself in a circle of stars. This one is pretty self-explanatory. He is the aquatic old god after all. Drowning in the circle of stars may be referring to what happened to Queen Azshara and all of her followers. They drowned after the Sundering, and they were found by the old gods. The next one is, the boy king serves at the master's table. 3 lies he will offer you. This one could be referring to Anduin, the new king of Stormwind, or possibly Rathian, who's also been lingering about for a while. Whoever it is though, we should pay close attention to what they say from now on. Next up, we have Her Heart is a Crater and We Have Filled It. I think this one may be referring to Jaina Proudmoore, who recently left the council on bad terms and has been very shifty in general lately. No one knows where she currently is, and I think this means that she could be under the thumb of the old gods and may play a pretty big role further down the road. Some people also think that this could refer to Sylvanas, which I think is also a possibility, especially if you consider the next quote. At the hour of her third death, she ushers in our coming. Sylvanas, being a banshee, could be someone who matches this description. Next up, we have the Lord of Ravens will turn the key. This one could be alluding to Khadgar, whose staff Atiash has a big thing with ravens. I think he'll open Pandora's box, unknowingly or otherwise, to kick off a war with the old gods. This also brings up something very interesting regarding N'Zoth. You know why he hasn't been around yet? Well, it's because he was isolated and hidden away by the Titans long ago. He's been imprisoned, but he can be released with the key. Which brings us to our next quote. 5 keys to open our way, 5 torches to light our path. This is the quote that made me make this video. If you think about it, 5 keys to open our way, and the Lord of Ravens will turn the key. If we think of Khadgar as the Lord of Ravens, try to remember our whole goal for this expansion, to try and collect these pillars of creation and to use them as weapons to stop the Burning Legion. Well, it turns out that there just happens to be 5 pillars of creation. The Aegis of Agrimar, the Tidestone of Golganath, the Eye of Amanthul, Khazgoroth's Hammer, and the Tears of Elune. And this also explains why Queen Azshara wanted to get the Tidestone. It's because she probably knows that it's essential to releasing N'Zoth from his prison. Another interesting quote is the King of Diamonds has been made a pawn. This could be referring to Magni Bronzebeard. During Cataclysm, he was investigating an old Titan tablet, but it turned out that it was trapped. He was cursed and turned into a diamond in Old Ironforge. He came back during the beginning of Legion, and he claims that through this curse, he was also connected to the voice of the world, Azeroth, who used to be a Titan. He's the one who told us about the Pillars of Creation, and if he truly is a pawn, he has ulterior motives, and he did it so we would unleash N'Zoth upon the world. Everything just lines up perfectly, and I feel pretty confident that this is what will happen in Legion, and what the next expansion will be about. I think we'll be successful in our war against the Burning Legion. Khadgar will use these 5 Pillars of Creation, or 5 keys, to somehow shut down the invasion, but in doing so, he'll unleash N'Zoth and all hell will break loose. Queen Azshara will strike, Jaina might come back, and N'Zoth will rise again. I think the next expansion will have a focus on the old god N'Zoth and Queen Azshara, Jaina, and either or of Magni, Anduin, and Rathian as minor villains. And to sort of add a cherry on top of the sundae, this scenario is prophesized by the Star Augur Etrius fight in the Nighthold. At the start of the fight, he shows you a tranquil planet. At phase 2, he shows you one conquered by the Burning Legion, and for the last phase, he shows you one consumed by an old god, appropriately enough being devoured by enormous tentacles, which of course matches the description of N'Zoth. And I think it makes sense if you look at the way they've been doing these expansions. Back during the Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King, their stories weren't really tied to each other. They're separate, and neither could have happened without the other. But ever since Pandaria, the stories have been connected and they lead into each other. Just like how the events of Pandaria led into Draenor, which led into Legion, I think the events of Legion will lead into the events of the next expansion, which will be about the old gods. So, that's about it. That's what I think the next expansion will be about and why I think it. Like I said though, this is all speculation and I could be wrong, but I feel pretty confident about it since there are so many signs pointing towards it. One thing I'll say is to just keep an eye out for any hints once we start nearing the end of Legion because they do like to tease you about it. If you remember during the end of the Warlords of Draenor, they were putting in little signs in the game alluding to what the next expansion would be about since obviously nothing was announced yet. The Metamorphosis trait on certain Garrison followers alluded to Demon Hunters, the Tannin Jungle Boss, Kha'Zix, had an item called the Spellcloak of Suramar, and all sorts of stuff. So it'll be really interesting to see how things progress here. One of the reasons why I like Legion so much is that I think the story is at its peak right now. To me, it's really interesting stuff, so I couldn't help but make a video about this topic. That being said though, if I made any mistakes with any of the lore, feel free to correct me. I'm not the biggest lore buff by any means, so I'm sure I goofed up somewhere. Also, I want to gauge if you guys think I'm on the right track or if I'm just talking nonsense. So in the description, I'll have a link to a poll where you can vote if I'm right or wrong. And if you feel like you need to elaborate in the comments, go ahead. That's about all I have to say though. I hope you found this video helpful. Like it if you liked it, and thanks for watching guys. Peace.